Mama. I'm Courtney Cecil, proud mom of two boys and an organizational culture and behavior change executive. And I'm a believer in building a movement to help the burned out, overwhelmed working moms reclaim their control and free time so that they can confidently remain in the workforce without losing the sanity or themselves. Now, let's get started. Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Life Management System. And today I am joined by Jensine Casey. And inside this snack sized episode, we're going to talk about children's sleep because those little rascals are responsible for totally upending so many of us. And Jensine, as I like to say, is a wizard between the sheets. So, as for anyone who tuned into my last episode, it was episode 11 on tactical solutions to improve your quality sleep as a mom. Then you heard me say that one of the most paramount needs to improving your own sleep is getting your kids to sleep. So, Jensine, with that, I would love to turn it over to you and introduce yourself. And not just introduce what it is you do. I want to humanize yourself. What is it that you love to do? What lights up your spirit? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. So I am a certified pediatric sleep consultant. I have a master's in early childhood development, and my biggest passion is really just helping families get the sleep that they need. I know sleep is hard enough to come by as an adult, let alone a parent. So my job is to help you find a sleep situation that works for your family. I'm also a mom of three. At the time of this recording, they are just turned 7, 5, and almost 3. So we are very busy. But yeah, we love to do things as a family. We're in New England, so farms, apple picking at this time. The beach is very big for us. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I'm a beach person too. Are
Yes.
you from New England or do you just live there now?
No, I'm born and raised Massachusetts. Well, actually, I can't even say that. I was born in Ohio and we moved when I was 6 months old.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really count.
Essentially, you are a New Englander at heart for sure.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things that you said that really hits with me is the importance of the entire family and being able to sleep. So I come from a situation where I fought for 7 gnarly years to retrain my own body how to sleep. And I almost
Mhm.
had some sort of sleep anxiety around it because I knew how hard it was for me to fall asleep and stay asleep. And I just got in my own head. I did a lot of life work
Mhm.
around that. But because of that hardship and because of the commitment I had to fixing my own body, I am so passionate about families getting this right.
Mhm.
So a partnership with someone like you, Jensine, I truly believe is just a life gift that families should invest in and give to themselves because it is so paramount to our health. So let's dig in with the questions for you, Jensine. I would love to start with this one. What happens if a child is having sleep challenges? Do you believe that they are naturally going to figure it out on their own and get to a place of ideal status, or do you believe that there is some intentional intervention that needs to be applied in order to uh, uh, help them figure this out?
Yes. It's funny because my answer is a no answer. It's a little bit of both, and it depends on the child and depends on what's going on. Most often, children are going to need a little bit of support to be able to figure this out. I say this a lot, and a lot of people fight me on it, but sleep is a learned skill. Like you said, you had to really focus on what do I need to do to optimize my own sleep and like reteach your body how to do that. And children are the same. We have to kind of help them through this journey to be able to figure out how to be able to best fall asleep on their own. What's the most comfortable for me, the temperature, all of that good stuff. But there is a little bit of nurture in it, of just like of nature in it. So it's just what what do I naturally need? What are already my good things about me that help me sleep well? And what are the things I'm born with that may not be so easy for me to sleep? So it really depends on what it is. Something like daylight savings, they're going to need a little bit of support because that's not something that's supernatural, because we're changing their natural schedule. But something like learning a new skill and development, pulling to stand, learning to crawl, that is natural. So usually they don't have as many sleep troubles around something like that.
Yeah. Well, and perhaps they could. So my oldest went through a lot of delayed physical progression.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, so we went through 6 months of physical training for him because when he was a year, he could not go from laying down to sitting up on his own,
Mm-hmm.
let alone putting any physical pressure on his body. He just could not support himself. But when we were going through that intense physical training, it was like everything else had to be put on a timeout because he was putting all of his energy and
Mm-hmm.
learning how to do what it is he needed to do. So I also learned through that as an example, his speech was delayed because he was not working on his speech like most other kids his age were. So
Yeah.
the extra intervention that I got from the physical therapist and then after that, the sleep there, I mean, the speech therapist did so much good in helping accelerate
Mm-hmm.
something that, or like he would have eventually gotten there on his own,
Mm-hmm.
but something as critical as sleep and considering it impacts the whole
Everything.
family, not just, yeah. I mean, it is a big deal. So I do want to put up a pin in the daylight savings time. I would love to come back to that if you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
mind. But before we get there, would love to hear you opine a little bit around why quality sleep matters to
Mm-hmm.
the child because everybody knows it is encouraged for health reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a pretty blanket statement.
Yeah.
And since I know that you also value health, it's something that is certainly at the top of my value list. And I know you well enough to know that it is something that you value as well. So would you mind helping the listeners understand specifically why sleep is critical to your health?
Yes. So there are so many good things that happen in that deep level of REM sleep. And if your child is waking up kind of every 2 hours, they're not able to get down into that deeper level where all of that goodness is happening. That's where children can build and restore memories. That is where our immune systems get to be built. That is where I was just going to say something, I completely forgot it. But all of the good
Mhm.
happens there. They're not going to be able to learn new developmental skills if they can't restore and remember the old ones that those are built upon. So if your child's not able to really get that good sleep every single night, they're going to build up a sleep debt. They're never going to be able to really relax into sleep and go down into that deeper level for all of that, those memories to build, for that immunity to come up. And then you're going to be working with very surface level, like their goal during the day is to stay awake. They don't have the capability to do anything else besides keep themselves a little bit awake and alert to be able to eat and then essentially probably go back to sleep. So we want them to be able to have the energy to be able to actually invest into doing other things like exploring their environment, interacting with caregivers, um, being able to work on new skills because they're just not going to have the energy if they're not able to sleep well every night, not just once a week.
Yeah. Something that you said too that really speaks to my mama heart is their ability to essentially build the memories.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, most parents are just trying to create magic left and right for their
Yes.
kids and do things that will create sticky memories that will
Mm-hmm.
help keep them a part of the family uh, emotionally, even when they have physically moved on and are on their own. So, oh my gosh,
Yeah, it
that's
works
what gets
both
me.
ways
Yeah.
because how I can't tell you how many times families come to me and say, I don't remember the first 6 months of my child's life. I don't remember the first year because I was so sleep deprived. So I want everyone to like be creating those sticky memories and for everyone to remember it. Not just that we're going through the motions as moms to create this for our children. We actually like want it to be a fun experience for everybody that when I'm old and gray and rolling my kids are pushing me in the wheelchair like they can say something and I can actually remember it too.
Oh gosh, that's oh
Yeah.
that I mean, it's so true because yeah, I don't remember much of that first 6 months. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I feel gypped by that. I just wish that I had a do-over of being able
Hmm.
to experience that first 6 months again, but in ways that did not involve the deprivation or did not involve the postpartum hormones that are just
Yes.
surging in a million different
Yes.
directions. It is wasted. That it is wasted.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
So next question, Jensen. So often moms don't get consistent sleep. I have many friends that fall into this category because their children prefer to co-sleep with them. And
Mhm.
because as moms, we love doing anything
Mhm.
that will make our kids happy, we have tendencies to do that. But also, as moms, we have tendencies to really buckle down and get serious about our kids' well-being if we know that
Mhm.
something is better for them. So, how important is that consistent sleep for the general well-being
Well-being.
as it relates to, when I think about the disruption that might happen with co-sleeping between children
Mhm.
and adults, what might that mean for the kid and what might that mean for the adult? And when is too much and
Mhm.
what level of co-sleeping is would you say is tolerable?
Yeah. So this again is really going to depend on the family because some parents, the child sneaks into their bed and they don't notice. And everybody sleeps great and they wake up well rested, and then it is what it is. So for me, while the American Academy of Pediatrics doesn't recommend co-sleeping, therefore I don't recommend co-sleeping, it's really a personal family choice. My recommendation is everyone needs to be getting the sleep that they need to be their best selves during the day. And if you're in a sleep situation where that's not happening, that's when we need to make some changes. So there's no magic like age to stop it, but it does get harder. The longer that you do it, the harder that it is to come to another sleep situation. So if you've done it for 2 months, like your child's a little bit older, you've done it for 2 months, and then they go back to their bed, it's not going to be as hard on a child that did it for 8 years of their life. And now you ask them to sleep in a bed in their own room, kind of one random night. So really thinking about like, what is our end goal? What are our family priorities? For me, our family priority, like I want to sleep in the bed with just me and my husband. Like
Mhm.
I do not want any children in our bed. So we're very clear about that to our children, and they know that these are their beds and they stay in them. Saturday mornings are the exception. They get to wake up and come into our bed, and we all like watch half an hour of a cartoon, and that's it. But they know like we do not sleep there overnight. So it really is going to depend on how you're getting the best sleep. And then if you kind of sit and evaluate and say, okay, this is maybe it's working for my child and they're sleeping amazing, but I'm not sleeping amazing. Okay, then we do need to make a change. And I need to be committed to that change, because if your child is used to it and they're really enjoying it, it's going to be a little bit harder to move them out of that situation and reteach them something new. But it's completely possible. We just have to be committed and set those boundaries and then follow through with them.
Yeah, the what I'm hearing from you is that as with anything else in life, habits are really hard to stop. So
They are.
once you've created a habit, and also once you have created a perceived level of tolerance with your kids, I
Mhm.
mean, those little suckers are pretty manipulative. They
Oh,
get
they're
it.
going
They
to
are
push.
smart. Yeah, they are smart. And one of the things that I concentrate on, one of my zones of genius is helping people develop sticky habits
Mhm.
and helping them create the discipline and the intentionality behind the choices they make, regardless of what they are. And most of our results we get from our discipline. And so
Mhm.
discipline is probably 80% of it.
That's
But what I
exactly
do
it.
appreciate about how you approach it, Jensen, is I hear a lot of flexibility within the framework. You might have recommendations of what good looks like, but you're very realistic for saying every family has their own needs, every child has their own needs, and I'm going to meet you where you are. And I just really appreciate that style of how you show up and how it sounds like you support your clients.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, it's different. I mean, even with my three, I have to approach it differently. What I say to one doesn't work for what works for the oldest doesn't work for the middle, doesn't work for the youngest. So even, same home, same parents, like we have to adapt too. So I can't ask someone to do the exact same thing as their neighbor with the child the same age, because it's just not going to work for them. So we do have to be realistic.
Yeah, I'm sure that what a a great parallel to your own family and the fact that even within the same nurtured environment, you are seeing, they're three different humans. And
Hmm.
I love that how adaptable you are there and how realistic too. And my oldest nephew was 5 months old when we lost him to SIDS. So I am
Mm.
a big proponent of safe sleep, but there are so many different conditions
Hmm.
that that might warrant one circumstance or the other. And
Yes.
I love that you honor that. So this is a good time. I'm going to call a timeout and remind my audience, for anybody that did not listen last week, that I am a huge fan of a tool called Apollo Neuro, because I just prioritize my own sleep so much, knowing that it's important. I wear a tool called Apollo Neuro, which essentially is a wearable bracelet that I put on my ankle, and it vibrates and it tells my brain, hey, chick, it is time to sleep. I need you down. So it has helped me get to sleep faster. It helps me stay asleep. I also have an energy button that I'm able to use to wake up in the morning as a non-caffeine consumer. So if you are interested in learning more about that, you can do so at apolloneuro.com/Courtney Anderson. And I have a code for $60 off for anybody who wants to try it. And that code is Courtney4. So anyway, back to you, Jensen. So let's move on to daylight savings time, which you just brought up. What recommendations would you have to help parents not skip a beat as they go through that transition?
Have a plan. I'm a big fan of lists and plans. But really just knowing, okay, how am I going to make this adjustment before it comes? So we're going to fall back. That's going to mean that your child's bedtime is going to feel an hour later. So if they are not at the age where they can just add an extra hour, like my 7-year-old adding an extra hour, doesn't matter to him. If I had an 8-month-old asking them to stay up for an extra hour, it's going to be a big deal. So we need to kind of take inventory. How old are they? What are things looking like now? And then how is this going to impact us when bedtime is going to be moved back an hour? And that means morning is probably going to be moved up an hour. If I'm already not loving a 5:30 a.m. wake up, 4:30 a.m. is probably not going to be any better.
People,
So
that hurts me for people.
so yeah, so have a plan of exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to make these adjustments before the time comes. So when you wake up on Sunday, you're waking up at your normal time and you really haven't even noticed a difference.
Do you have uh any perception on how long it might take a child to adjust for that hour?
It takes a little bit. Families will come to me maybe a week or two after the time change and say, "Okay, we're still not back to normal. We're still struggling." Really, usually I'm gonna say about 4 weeks I would give it to be able to make
Wow.
that transition. Yeah, it takes a little bit. It's not usually as bad at this time in the fall when it ends, but in the spring, that's usually a much bigger, when we're losing that hour, that's usually a much bigger transition.
Wow, what a reality check there.
Yeah.
And also a sad one, but I'm sure it's not just kids. We have to acknowledge that
Hmm.
there's something to our own circadian rhythm that's probably disrupted as well when this change happens.
Oh, when it's dark very early, yes, it's harder to be motivated at work when you're coming into work and it's dark and you're leaving work and it's dark. When I'm going to like pick my children up at 3 o'clock and the sun is setting, it's definitely, the evenings feel like they go on forever. So
Yeah.
it definitely impacts everybody.
Yeah, not to mention when it's cold, there's no part of
Oh,
me that wants to get out of the bed in the morning.
no. Oh no. Heated blanket.
Yeah.
That's my trick.
Yes, yeah, and I am a huge fan of a weighted blanket, which is not quite the same as a heated blanket,
Mm,
but it does give me that extra level of comfort and
yeah.
certainly I sleep. Okay, last technical question for you, Jensen. What do you believe is a big misconception or a mistake that you see many new parents making, or something, just some point of wisdom that you wish that they knew?
I think I would recommend that everyone prioritize and learn about newborn sleep. This is going to be a really big transition in your life, having a newborn, anyways. And the biggest thing that's going to change is your sleep pattern. There is going to be days where you're going to sleep like hour chunks at a time, maybe. And that's not your norm. So if you kind of know what to expect from a newborn and how this is going to impact your sleep, and then know how am I going to adjust? Are we going to hire someone to come and help us for some nights? Are we going to have family members come? Are we going to tag team it? So you're doing one shift, I'm doing a second shift. Just being aware of how that's going to impact you before it even happens is going to be a very, very big deal. Because then once it happens, it's not going to rock your world as hard as it would. As far as it did mine when
Yeah.
we brought our oldest home, and I was like, oh wow, everyone, says babies don't sleep, but they do. They just sleep in very small chunks. And as soon as I was getting into that deep level of sleep, that's when he would wake. And that was really, really difficult for me to deal with at first.
Yeah, I think that I crash read every book on the market about kids'
Mhm.
sleep. I remember being so desperate. And there were, at the end of the day, my biggest lesson was my child was not a robot. So while I've
Mhm.
been doing everything the book said, the books are still not accounting for the human variable that exists.
Yes.
And that was a really, as especially as an engineer, where I'm like, it's
Yeah.
fog. I don't know. Like it just made it was a very good life lesson for me in parenting
Mhm.
that I learned in those early months. But those early months are painful. And anybody
Yeah.
in that stage, my heart's with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Have the framework, but then sometimes your baby's just not going to nap at the time the book says, or, they're
Yeah.
going to be up in the middle of the night longer than you expect. So it's just, I always like to use the books and the frameworks as like, okay, this is how we hop back on track, and not necessarily to like shame you or make you feel guilty or bad if it's not going exactly according to plan. This way you just know the next stop to hop back on the train.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, Jensen. So we are going to transition to a new tradition. You are
Ooh.
my first ever guest on this
Ooh.
podcast. And I am so excited about finally being able to invite new blood because it fills my cup up, but I also know that it brings great and different perspective to the listeners. So this tradition that I am starting with guests is a lightning round of questions. And I've never actually answered them myself. So I am going to ask the question and answer it for myself, and then I'm going to turn that question over to you to get your answer. So
Okay.
the first question is, what's your go-to stress busting activity? So for me, it's catching up with a girlfriend, hands down.
Mm.
I love to be able to have quality conversations with my closest friends. So if I am feeling extra stressed or in consulting, what we call it extra crispy, like really burnt out, then I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call a girlfriend or we'll sit there and have a Zoom over a glass of wine or something. But just being able to have quality time with a friend completely
Mm.
diffuses me. So what about you? What is your biggest, your go-to stress busting?
Yeah, it'd be moving my body, working out, dance. I come from a dance background, dance since I was 3. So usually like turning on music, moving in some way, that kind of, I can feel the stress melting away.
So how much dancing is going on in your kitchen when y'all are
Oh,
all the time?
a lot.
What kind
Bubble dance parties. Yeah.
and what
We
kind of
go.
music is typically playing?
That's funny. We'll do a lot of like Disney songs. So
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
like Cars soundtrack, Trolls. We're really Frozen. It's in the
Uh-huh.
mix now. Yeah.
Trolls and Sing 2. Sing 2 has
Sing.
become
Oh,
our latest
same.
obsession. I think it is my favorite ever children's movie, probably. I'm
Yes.
just
Yeah.
obsessed with the
I
Sing
don't think
2.
I've seen Sing 2. I have to,
Oh my
we watch
gosh.
Sing 1 a lot. So I'll
So
have to
Sing
go.
1 is good. Sing 2 is also one of the only movies that I believe the second was better than the first.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I
It's on the
stand pretty
list.
firm. I would add it. It is it's been on Netflix. Hopefully it still is, but it is my biggest children's obsession.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. Uh what's the last book or podcast you love? So for me, I'm a prolific reader, and by reading, I don't have time for that. I listen to everything. So I have to keep track on Goodreads for anybody that's familiar with
Mhm.
that app what it is that I read in order to be able to keep up because otherwise I'll get into books and be like, wait, this sounds so familiar. And then I know what's happening because I realized 3/4 of the way in that I've already read it. So I
Mm.
pumped through books, but I went through yesterday and was like, what was the last time I rated a book 5 stars? And apparently that book is ironically an academic book. It's The Six Types of Working Genius.
Hmm.
So the premise behind that, I lead culture at a global bank, specialize in behavior change, spend a lot of time in this space. So there's something inherent about that I loved about the book. But I also in my business speak a lot about the highest and best use. Like I want you as a mom, as a professional, as a person on this earth to spend your time in your highest and best use. And I think
Mm.
the 6 types of working genius really essentially is intending to capitalize on that notion. They use different language, but their point is you need to take advantage of your natural gifts and you need to make sure that all of your teammates are doing the same thing. Because when you tap into those natural gifts and you're able to lean into what you do best and what someone else does best, then you're going to get better results. You will increase engagement. So as a culture executive, I care a lot about engagement. I want the employees in my organization to want to be there and want to show up and give their all. Obviously, the senior leaders of my bank also want people to be productive. And by tapping into somebody's working genius, it allows you to do that. And it also just honors that it takes a village because everybody shows up differently.
Yeah.
So that's my answer. Jensen would
Cool.
love to hear from you on what yours is.
Um, so latest book. I love books. I read every night. I make like a in my bedtime routine. I will do 30 minutes of reading. But I'm on like book talk. I like spicy books. So I won't give any titles. But those are my books that I like to read. Podcasts. I listen to a podcast every morning when I make the kids lunches before school. This morning I listened to Catherine Zankina, Manifestation Babe. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
No, but I like
But
it.
yes, I love her and her like real tips for manifesting kind of your dream life, the life that you wanna live. How do you make that happen? Like your day-to-day activities. So she is definitely one of the podcasts that I listen to. I
A
have
go
a couple that I rotate through, but she is who I listened to this morning.
Okay, I need to check that out. That is something that the just the notion of manifestation has come into my life in
Mm.
a really big way in 2024 specifically. So I think I
Oh,
need to get a little piece of that. Okay, the
yes, she's
last
great.
question is if you could wave a magic wand, what task would you eliminate forever? And ironically, considering what you just said, mine is I would eliminate my bedtime routine. I hate like I because I'm disciplined, I'm really good about doing all the things, like my millions of creams, all the things that I need to do for my teeth, like my stretching. I mean, it's just a million different things and it takes so much time.
Mm.
But moreover, because I'm so disciplined, I refuse to quit any of them. So
Yeah.
even if it's 1 a.m., like I'm sitting there giving it my all. And it's the one thing I can't outsource. Like I have to do it every
Mm.
day
It's
and I
true.
can't give that away. So it just feels a little bit like a ball and chain, even though I try to make it more enjoyable by listening to my audiobooks then. It's still like, oh, here we go again, another hour. So
Yes,
that's mine. What about you? What would
that's
if
too
you could wave
funny.
a magic wand, what would you give away?
What would I give away? Um, it would be something like vacuuming, or probably my husband does the dishes. I don't, I like to cook, but not for three small children who don't often
Yeah.
eat what I make. So it would be cooking, or I mean, I like to vacuum, but I'm vacuuming multiple times a day. So
Do you have a pet?
no, I have children
It's
that
three
just
children. Yeah, that's
don't
three
know
of
how
them.
to get food into their mouths,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah.
So,
3 times the mess.
yes,
Vacuuming is my favorite thing if I had to choose a chore, but I mean, who actually likes to do chores?
that's
Uh,
well, that's what I'm thinking. I don't like I don't mind vacuuming, but I feel like if I have to always have the vacuum around, maybe I
yeah.
need a Roomba. I need something
Yeah.
that can automate this for me because
Yes.
I think they're talking to each other, they're distracted. I'm like, my son likes to scoop the cereal in his hand and then put it in his mouth, and it just like falls. So we need to reteach him how to eat cereal, I think is the main problem here.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, well, Jensen, before we hop off here, tell everybody who's listening how they can find you. If they want, and it also, I would love for you to touch on the age of the kids you tend to work with.
Yes. So I work with newborns to about 2.5 children who are still in a crib, basically. And if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at Baby Owen I. My oldest son is named Owen, so it's named after him. BabyOwenIConsulting.com is my website. So if you just type in Google Baby Owen I, you will find me.
And I will make sure we get that in the show notes as well. So, Jensen, it has been my absolute pleasure having you here. And one of the reasons that, so I'm doing a bit of a two-part series here because, as I indicated at the top of the episode, sleep is not just critical for your children's well-being, but it's also super critical for you. And I feel so passionate about that after all the crap sleep I went through after having kids. Like, I invested so much time and energy and money into getting this right. And now my quality of sleep is awesome. I know how healthy that is for me. So I'm a believer in getting this right for you and for your entire family. So thank you so much, Jensen, for your willingness to join
Yes.
me and be my first ever guest.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yep. So, well, guys, if you have not joined my distribution list, that's where all the good stuff happens. That's where my current subscribers are about to find out how I have learned how to save hundreds from Pottery Barn. Like, it's stuff
Ooh.
like that. Yeah. But you can get on that by going to www.workingmomsmovement.com/time-wasters. That will also give you the top 10 ways that most people waste their time. And yeah, it's stuff like social media, but I'm here to tell you most of it is probably something that's going to surprise you. So if you like what you're hearing, I would love to have you back here. Share this podcast with a friend, subscribe, rate and review us. I would be so grateful. But until next time, if nobody's told you lately, you are doing a great job. You've got this, Mama.